Hi guys, I'm back. It's Don with Illinois Sasquatch. I'm trying something a little different today. Today we're going to do an interview with Chris. He owns a farm along the Illinois River, and he's had some experiences over his life with supposed Bigfoot sightings, and we're going to talk to him and let Chris tell us a little about his experiences. So hello Chris, do you want to tell us about your first encounter?
Yeah, that was back before I had the actual sighting. We had some cattle here, and they were out in the timber part of the pasture, and one evening we heard, it was about dark, we heard probably January, and we heard the calf out there screaming for dear life and going crazy, and all the cattle came running up towards the house up here where the barn is and all that to get away from whatever that was happening. And so the next day me and my dad went out there and looked around because one of the calves were actually missing, and we found it torn up pretty much to pieces, and you could tell there was a lot of meat going on it too, so obviously it was killed for meat to eat. Forgot to add too, it looked like there was almost a spiral break on one of the legs too.
Like it had been twisted?
Yes.
Did you find any impressions, tracks?
No, there wasn't no snow, and it was cold, so the ground was froze, and unfortunately there wasn't no snow to find tracks. So
what year did you say this was?
That was before 1987, probably a year or two before my actual sighting.
Okay.
Probably 85, 86. And 1987 is when I had the actual real life sighting. I was riding my bicycle right by the house here on the road, and I was young. I think I was like 10 or 11. I was riding around. We had a fresh inch of snow. I looked down on the road looking at my tracks, and when I picked my head up, probably here from here to the fence away there, probably 40 yards or so, it crossed the road right in front of me. It looked like a giant orangutan, about 8 foot tall, if not higher.
Really?
Taller. Yeah. Hair hanging down, and that was in the yard. Get in the house and look for a camera. I turned the bike because we had a snow before that's been plowed, and I went up over the handlebars of the bike, ran in the house looking for a camera. Couldn't find it anywhere, but my heart was in my throat. It felt like my heart was in my throat beating because I knew what it was.
Oh, that sounds incredible.
And it was close. I mean, I could literally see the different color in the face. That's how close that was.
Could you, in describing the face, could you say it was more human, more primate looking?
I think it looked like a mixture of both. Probably a little more human.
How about arm length?
Down to the knees. It was long. They were long, and they were just swaying as it was walking. I got goosebumps right now thinking about it, because I can see it just like I've seen it. It was in the evening. It was still light out. I'm gonna guess about 5 o'clock, somewhere in there, 5:30, because it was, getting dark early. And me and my sister went up the next day and found footprints. My sister Elaine, and she's a believer too. Them footprints, I think they live around here, especially down along the river, because there's nothing but timber on that side.
There's a lot
so many
of
places to live.
A lot of people who've had encounters or experiences seem to come to the conclusion that the waterways are pathways for them. Are an adult, juvenile?
I would say it was an adult. I'm going to put it at 8 foot tall, easy. It's gone somewhere. But my mom, we were looking for the camera, we couldn't find it. By the time we did find it, I back out, that it was gone. Mm-hmm. And I told everybody about it.
Okay, Chris. Now, can you move on to your next encounter or experience and give us an idea of what you went through and based on your memory?
Well, seeing it is engraved in my head. I'll never forget that as long as I live. And yes, a lot of stuff has happened here since. I mean, it's just nonstop.
Take your time.
Yeah. There's been many times where I've heard wood knocks out here and then hit the side of the house.
Really?
Literally shook my bedroom. Well, that night it hit the side of the house. I had a niece staying over. And she's a smoker. She went outside about, I think it was like 2:30, 3 in the morning to have a cigarette. And she heard something between these two pens screaming and yell at the same time. She said it almost like somebody was screaming and yelling at the same time, but it was so loud it echoed all over. The animals were hitting the fence. By the time she come in and got me out of bed, I could run out, and the animals were hitting the fence, going nuts. My sister had a dog that did not want to come outside.
That seems to be a common occurrence with dogs.
Yeah.
They don't want to approach it, don't want nothing to do with it.
And I had a duck pen out here. It's got 2 strands of electric fence around it. Well, that pen's gone. Now a tree fell on it. And there's 4-inch insulators that wrap around holding the fence up. And that same night, well, something went around there and bent each insulator up straight, trying to disable the fence, the electric fence. That's what I'm thinking it was doing, trying to get to my birds. And they were bent. And this electric fence is a powerful fence. Oh, the box, the fence comes out. It was really powerful. It's good for 25 miles. The wire would put me to my knees if I hit it. And whatever it was, bent these insulators straight up. Here, I had some laying hens. I noticed every now and then I'd go down and take care of the birds, and I'd have a few less every time. I was locking them up every night. I couldn't understand this.
Have you lost any livestock or animals or dogs or birds? Or
Oh, a lot of birds through the past years.
just due to predation or possibly Bigfoot or a combination of both?
I think so, yeah. But I talked to Stan Courtney, and he said what these Bigfoots are known to do, they're very smart. They will open the door, walk in, get what they want, and they will actually close the door behind them. And that turn on the light. That's
Turn on the light?
No, they'll walk into a shed like the chicken house, take
Okay.
what they want, and leave, and shut the door just like they left it. That's what he said, and it, you know what? That makes sense, because when all this is happening, chickens were coming out missing in the chicken house, and
That's borderline human behavior almost.
it is,
You know,
and that's what I was thinking.
I'm not saying other primates, chimpanzees can do that also, but
Right.
that raises the question
It does.
that they are trying to avoid any kind of people knowing they were there,
Yes.
giving off any signs or hints that they've been in your.
Yeah, I had a couple of guys stop here at the house a few years back, and they work on the barges. They're on there like a week straight or 2 weeks, whatever that was. And stopped here to see me one day, and they said, "Hey, this is going to sound funny to you, but does anything weird happen around here?" I said, "Like what? Do you see anything that looks human or like a Bigfoot?" They come out and said. I said, "Actually, yeah, a lot of that stuff happens." And he said, "You know, we never believed it either till we actually seen one along the river." And he said it was probably early morning, 2, 3, might even been 4, I can't remember, but he said where the river bends north of Hennepin up there, they took the spotlight, shined it around, and seen something leaning over drinking water, and got up on 2 legs and walked in the woods. And they said the thing was huge.
All out of what they say. And so go ahead and finish your point. You were saying that you were dealing with after the barge workers reported sightings along the banks of the river. They felt that there was something going on. That's why they questioned you.
Yes. They said, "Do you ever see anything weird here, like a Bigfoot or something?" It took them a while to actually say Bigfoot, because they thought, I don't want to think I was nuts.
Right.
But I said, "You're not nuts."
It's a touchy subject.
They do exist. They are around here. And there has been a lot of sightings between Hennepin and Henry and Peoria along the river. And there was a guy, I don't know how many years ago, this was now 5 years ago, my brother actually knew him. He said he had a John boat. He was fishing up in this Hennepin area, the river, and he launched down in Henry. On his way back, it was evening. Same thing. He said he seen something along the river, looked like a great big tree stump, and he knew it wasn't a tree stump. He got up, walked in the woods on 2 legs, all full of hair. The guy sold his boat. He didn't ever want to see it again.
Really?
My brother said this guy is not going to tell a story. He said he really did see something like that.
So he's keeping that story close to his chest, and he's not really.
Yeah, he's not telling us.
He's not telling it. So you're very lucky to hear about something.
Most of the people don't want to tell it.
Yeah.
No, they don't.
Yeah, people say some things to members of their family, and only select members of their family, and generally friends and coworkers, nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
And I understand that. I have respect for people's privacy.
Yeah.
So let's move on. What else have you experienced?
And they were on the gator one night, and it wasn't really late. I think it was only about 11 o'clock, and they were going down the dirt road here, and they both said they had rocks thrown at them. They came back pretty scared, so I said, let's get in the truck and go down there and look. Got in the truck, it was halfway down there. There's a big log on the middle of the road. They couldn't went around. They said that was not there a bit ago.
Yeah, that seems to be a common occurrence.
Okay.
Yeah, people come down a road, logging road, to return, and they'll find that their exit is blocked, or even trails.
Yeah. Well, there's a pretty good-sized log. I drug it off the road, but honestly, I think my dad knows stuff that went on, but he never talked about it. My mom was a firm believer. She always watched finding Bigfoots and all that, and she's always said, I know they're out there. And
did they refer to them also as Bigfoot, or okay? Because I know sometimes, depending on the rural setting you're in, they'll call them boogers or wood boogers or swamp boogers.
Yep. Well, just like the calf getting torn up. And like I said, we were looking at the lake and it looked like a spiral break. Me and my dad was looking at that, and he said something about, and it definitely wasn't a coyote either. And that reminds me, I was deer hunting in the timber close by here, and I found a deer carcass once with a spiral broke leg too.
Really?
Yes. It was right up there.
Interesting.
Yes.
Partially eaten, or?
Yeah. It was kind of, you could tell it was eaten, but it was old enough to where it was rotting away, but you can definitely see the spiral break.
Wow. Yeah, that's unusual. Usually that takes hands. Coyotes, wolves, they don't predate that way, and very interesting.
Definitely had a spiral break along with the calf.
Well, Chris, is there anything else you can think of offhand that you haven't mentioned? The microphone's all yours.
Yeah. Just last night, I heard wood knocks. I'm about 100% sure that's what it was. Just right over across the road over there. And, all right.
I'll tell you, in this heat wave we've had this July, if I was living outdoors, the coolest place I would find would be along the river.
Yes.
So if you want to select a place where a predator is going to sort of hang out or look for possible prey, I would pick the river as a travel way.
Definitely. Yeah. And I got the lake here, and that's
perfect habitat
for water. And well, I just thought of this about 2 weeks ago. Had company here, and they had 2 dogs with them. And the only time these dogs really bark at something, well, they bark at a lot of things, but it was like a scared bark. Their hair was standing on their back. And right across the road over there, they seen something. We heard, actually, a tree broke and fell in the timber over there, and it sounded like a dead tree. The wind wasn't blowing either. A couple minutes later, the dogs were looking that way, going crazy.
So you think it was a tree got pushed over, huh?
Yeah, well, we definitely pushed over. And it's pretty wooded over there and hid, and the dogs are going crazy. And it was really quiet, too. There was no birds making noise. And the dogs are going crazy. Like I said, the hair is standing on their back. She actually said the only time the dogs act like this is when they're really scared.
Knocks were in this direction?
Right over that direction, across the road.
The claim that activity is only at night. I think there's increased activity at night.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I believe so.
But I think daytime, people think that there is no activity. I disagree with. How about spring?
Spring, not as bad, but yes, get it. Actually, like I said, all year round, but mainly in the fall and spring.
Yeah.
Mainly in the fall, basically.
Yeah, it seems I hear a lot of that from people that do research in the Midwest, Ohio included.
Yeah.
It seems like things ramp up in the fall.
Yeah. Something else I got to add, too. Back when I had my saying over here, my other sister that stays here at the house. She was out by the road with one of her friends during broad daylight. I mean, I can't remember what time, but I know it was daytime. They were over by the road playing. They're pretty young at the time. And there was an old shed sitting over there. And I think it might have been staying in the shed too every now and then. They come running to the house crying. They said they seen something over there standing by the tree. It was big and hairy, just swaying there, looking at them, watching them play.
How long ago was this?
That was...
Classic behavior.
Yeah.
That's classic behavior.
And she don't want to talk about it. I say, how about that sighting you had? I know, I don't want to talk about it.
So this was a few years?
Yeah, I can't remember if it was before I had my sighting or after. I think it was actually a couple months before I had my sighting. And the way she explained it to me looked exactly like the one I seen cross the road.
So this was in the 80s?
Yeah, that was 1987.
86, 87, okay.
Yeah. Back when I seen that one cross the road, me and my sister Elaine went up. Me and my sister went up the next day and found footprints.
Fairly fresh?
Oh yeah, from the next day.
When you stood next to those tracks, how far did you sink in compared to how far those tracks were sunk in? And could you make an impression?
I couldn't, because the ground was actually froze underneath it.
So they busted through the crust.
Yeah.
That's how heavy they were.
The ground underneath was froze. They couldn't sink in the ground, but they went through. I was walking down to its knees long, if not longer.
So, do you now, after all these experiences and your eyewitness encounter, your visual encounter, do you now at nighttime, do you walk very far into the wooded area behind your property, or do you even bother if you hear noises? You just let it go and say, hey, it is what it is, and you let them do their thing? Or
yes, yeah, I just kind of, if I hear stuff, I kind of let it go, because I know it's not going to hurt nobody. So I'm so used to it, so used to hearing these noises, and after seeing that, it's not new to me. So
it almost sounds like you have what I would say is an unintentional habituation, that they're sort of habituated, but it's not because you're feeding them, it's just that because you have a farm with animals, livestock, geese, chickens, and it's sort of, in some ways, almost easy pickings for them.
Yep.
And it's not like you're out there feeding them. So, I mean, it's sort of almost, and if it's generational, this has been going on for quite some time.
Years, yeah. And something else I got to add, too. Had 5 elk out up in this pen. This is probably 10 years ago or so, not even. It was a beautiful day. The breeze was coming out of the south. And they were out here just laying down, enjoying the day. And all of a sudden, they all got up and ran. They kind of made a circle, ran in a circle, and the bull looked towards the south and made a real loud warning sound, like
trumpet type.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And this is in the summer. Everything was good, and nothing scares them elk. Coyotes, nothing. Whatever they smelled came from the south, and it scared them so bad they came out there and ran all the way over there as far as they could and stared that way for probably, I guess, 10-15 minutes. And finally they calmed down. Their hair were standing on their back too.
Wow.
And nothing around here will scare an elk like coyote or nothing. Because my sister, the one that we found the footprints with me, was in the house one night by herself. Everybody's gone. And she let the dog outside. And it was barking, wanting to get back in the house. And she opened the door and stood there, and there was something grunting on the other side of the road over there. That dog was scared to death. I was like that.
On the east side of the road.
On the east side of the road. She said, yeah.
That's almost like it was warning them, like, hey, here I am.
Yeah.
And
yeah, and she said she wouldn't, she was afraid to go outside.
You've got these homes every so many quarter mile, eighth of a mile, but you don't see them until you're right on top of the houses.
Exactly.
I would have never suspected there was a house back here until I drove up your driveway.
Yeah.
You're basically surrounded on all 4 sides.
Oh, yeah.
By forests.
Definitely. And I love it. I had never lived in town or the city, and there's nothing that's going to scare me out here. Because actually, this Bigfoot thing is, I love it. I'd like to see.
So you've learned to sort of coexist.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Live at least in peace, to a degree.
Yeah.
As long as they don't take all your animals.
Exactly,
huh?
yeah. I tell you what, though, I get nervous at night because one of them things can break down that fence if they want to get in there. And I don't want that to happen. And
yeah, it's been speculated a creature that's anywhere from 400 to 800 pounds.
Yeah.
How many calories it has to take in on a daily basis to actually just to move around and function.
Especially in the wintertime.
Yeah, I mean, and that's comparable to a bull moose.
Yeah.
You look at the calorie intake of a bull moose or a large animal, it's got to. Otherwise, it's just staying in one spot, not moving a lot, which I don't see these creatures doing, except when we have maybe heat waves.
Right. Yep.
Them sort of, hunkering down and not moving around a lot.
And another thing I got to add here, too, is you've asked me about the footprints earlier. A friend of mine came down one year, and the lake was dry, and we found footprints out there, bare footprints, 5 toes, in the mud, and they weren't big. Probably like that. I'd say it's a juvenile.
Small adolescent, huh? Are they here all year long? You have activity?
Well, like I said, mainly in the fall and spring. I think they're here year-round, but most of the activity is in the fall and spring. Mainly, or like out here, you get all them cattails laying in the cattails during the day, keeping out of the sun.
Oh, yeah. And my own theory on this, that possibly they're very careful, the adults are, where they leave their tracks, where they leave their footprints.
Yeah.
And I think they don't have that kind of control over the adolescents or the young ones. I think just like our own kids go to places they're not supposed to, and we're always trying to control that. I think, like you said, when your lake was, went dry and they were in the lake bed, very possibly the young ones were running free through the lake bed, and very possibly the adults had to pick them up or take them out of there.
Right. And that, like I said, that was only 5-6 years ago.
That's pretty recent.
Yeah. Oh, I've heard big things walking through the timber.
You heard the thumps?
Oh, yeah, thumps.
And footfalls?
In fact, back when I found these structures, a couple friends were with me. I'll say their names, I don't know if they'd want this. And we were out there actually looking at that structure that was just made. On our way back, we heard a big thump behind us. And she said, "Let's go here. It sounded like, there's chunks of concrete down there. It almost sounded like a big chunk of concrete got picked up and thrown, hit the ground behind us." We were walking away from that structure. This was probably a month ago.
Wow, that's that seems to be common behavior. I mean, you're not the only one. I've heard this, and not just on the BFRO sighting reports, but personal accounts from hundreds of other people have talked about them throwing big tree trunks, chunks of timber, launching them, as if to discourage people from getting closer.
Intimidation.
Yeah. Oh, and had this too. And 3 people here one night, and we were actually on the subject of Bigfoot because they know it's a really active area. And they said, I was kind of surprised at this too. They said, "You think if you made a howl, you'd get a response?" I was kind of kidding around. I said, "Yeah, let me try." And I, like that. Not even 2 seconds later, whoop, came from that. Whoop, I didn't think nothing would happen, and by God, whoop, just like that came from that direction.
Yeah, that's.
And I wish they were here to clarify with you.
We believe you.
Yeah, it's good if not everybody has a recording going when that happens.
I hear you.
It's sort of an afterthought.
Yeah.
It's tough to catch it.
It is.
I mean, I caught some howls, barks, scream howls, like what you described before was like a mix between a howl and a scream or a howl and a bark. And I get a lot of that, and I just don't know what to make of it.
Yeah.
Because I have nothing else to compare it to in the animal kingdom that makes that sound.
He wants to keep his name because he said he was hunting one night, and of course he had a blaze orange because it was gun season, and evening he heard something, and he looked to the left towards the river. He said he never left.
Go ahead.
Okay. He never left the timber so fast in his life. He said, "This thing's walking on 2 legs, all full of hair." He said, "I just seen a Bigfoot." And he took me down there. We found structures all over the place.
Really?
Broken sticks stuck in the ground. For some reason, they were all pointing towards the north. We found teepee structures. About a year ago, we found them, and we were all walking around out there looking for sign. We could see footprints, but of course it's wet down there, so they're all filled up with mud and water, but you could tell what they were.
Wow.
This happened in the middle of the night. My sister had 2 dogs in the house, and they started going crazy one night, barking and growling, and all of a sudden they crawled under her bed. Her window was open, and I could hear something walking along the house outside, past the bedroom. And then I started walking away from the house across the road. By the time I got to the window and looked out, I could hear sticks breaking. Now, big sticks, and you could actually hear the footprint, it sounded like a human walking.
So the footfalls were
Yeah, pretty big. I mean, they weren't...
so under the weight, they were breaking the sticks they were walking on.
Yeah, definitely. And I could hear sticks breaking and all that, and I listened to it walk up the hill towards my neighbors. There's an old creek that runs by the house, and it sounded like it got into the creek and walked uphill, and then his horses were starting to go crazy. I could hear them neighing and all that, and that lasted probably 5 minutes, and they calmed down. So I imagined it walked up past them, crossed the highway into the next timber over, and that was, like I said, 4 years ago.
That's very interesting. I mean, in conclusion, I don't want this to run too long.
Right.
Have you had any other things you could add to this to sort of, over the years, have you lost a lot of livestock, or have you lost any of your birds?
A lot of little livestock, like birds and all that. And back when we had hogs, we've had a lot of hogs come up missing. Not no 800-pounders and anything, but just kind of...
Like feeder hogs?
Yeah, feeder hogs, young ones.
So it was always suspect, you felt?
Yes.
Not coyotes?
No. Coyote ain't going to go in the pen, because these were actually literally gone. The coyote would
Just
kill
taken,
them.
like something stepped over the fence and took it.
Exactly.
Yeah, and your fences aren't short by no means.
No. Back then they were short fences back then for hogs.
Yeah.
3-4 foot high, which something like that could easily step over it.
Yeah, I used to have those in my garden, but a human being, a little more difficult to pick up a hog and step over
Exactly.
the 4-foot fence.
Because you're talking 300-400 pound hog. No,
Yeah.
800, but still, I'm sure it could pick up an 800 hog. 800 pound hog.
Sure.
Yep.
And I want to thank you for taking the time to talk to us.
No, you're welcome. Thanks
Yep.
for coming out.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank